Job, a miraculous journey of faith. Discover the divine transformation in this inspiring 4K film. In the land of Uz, during the time of the patriarchs, lived a man named Job. This man was blameless, upright, fearing God and turning away from evil. Job was blessed with great wealth, possessing thousands of sheep, camels, oxen, and donkeys, as well as a large family of 10 children. He rose early each morning to offer sacrifices, fearing that his children might have sinned, demonstrating his deep devotion to the Lord. His reputation for righteousness echoed throughout the region, yet beneath his generous exterior lay a profound awareness of the fragility of faith and fortune. As we peer into the celestial realm, a gathering unfolds before the throne of God. Among the divine beings stands Satan, the accuser. A conversation ensues, piercing the heavens like thunder. Satan contends that Job's piety is woven from the fabric of his prosperity. Does Job fear God for nothing? He poses, suggesting that if all Job's blessings were stripped away, he would surely curse the very God he worships. God permits the test, confident in Job's integrity, while still holding Job in his protective embrace. In an instant, calamity descends upon Job's house like an unstoppable tempest. A messenger arrives first, breathless and terror-stricken, to report that raiders have taken his oxen and donkeys. Before the first news settles, another follows swiftly. Fire has consumed his sheep, leaving no trace. The air grows heavy with the silence of despair when the third man arrives to deliver the tragic report. A great wind has demolished the house of his eldest son, taking with it the lives of all his beloved children. Job rends his garments, his heart breaking in anguish, yet amidst the suffering he does not curse God. Instead he falls to the ground and worships, proclaiming, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." But the torment is not over. Job's long-awaited serenity is shattered anew as painful sores erupt upon his skin. His wife, overwhelmed by sorrow, pleads with him to forsake his faith and curse God to find peace in death. Job's steady response echoes through time. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil? Such words encapsulate his conviction that God's sovereignty reigns, even amid deepest suffering. 3 friends hear of Job's plight, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, arriving to share in his grief. They sit with him in silence, honoring the depth of his sorrow for 7 days. Yet, as the stillness begins to wane, they initiate intense discussions that probe the essence of suffering, divine justice, and God's mysterious purposes. Job wrestles fervently with the aching questions that plague his heart, longing for clarity amid chaos and despair. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's Word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's Word speaks to hearts across generations. Now, let's continue with what the Lord did next. As shadows deepen, Job's lament grows, invoking the heavens to reveal the reason for his plight. Every word is an anguished prayer for understanding, a cry for the presence of God in his desolation. All the while, a silent dialogue brews in the heavens, hinting at a resolution that remains just beyond the veil. What will unfold in this story, and how will Job navigate the treacherous waters of faith, loss, and the silence of God? The answers simmer with divine intention, inviting us deeper into the sacred mystery of faith amidst life's trials. As the dawn broke over the land of Uz, Job sat in the ashes of his grief, scraping his painful sores with a broken pottery shard. The weight of his suffering pressed heavily upon him, and the voices of his friends echoed in his mind, probing, questioning, and offering their misguided interpretations of God's justice. Eliphaz, the firstborn among them, spoke with the confidence of experience. "Consider now, who, being innocent, has ever perished? Or where were the upright ever destroyed? As I have observed, those who plow evil and those who sow trouble reap it." His words dripped with a bitter condescension, a belief held tightly that suffering was the direct result of sin. Job's heart sank further with each utterance, for he knew he had walked blamelessly before God. Bildad followed with a voice like a thundercloud, proclaiming the ancestral wisdom, "If your children have sinned against him, he has delivered them into the hand of their transgression." Each assertion struck Job like arrows, piercing his already wounded spirit. He felt the gnawing isolation of his torment, an innate longing for an answer yet weighing heavily on his soul. Through the desperate cries of his despair, Job challenged what he perceived as a deep misunderstanding of divine justice. "I loathe my very life," he exclaimed. "Therefore I will give free rein to my complaint and speak out in the bitterness of my soul. I say to God, do not declare me guilty, but tell me what charges you have against me." His words were not just protestations. They were the outpouring of a heart wrestling with anguish yet clinging to the hope of divine interaction. Yet, as the days turned to weeks, Job continued in his agonizing expressions, declaring, "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. I will surely defend my ways to his face." His longing for God's reply burned within him, for he desired not only answers but an audience with the Almighty himself. In the celestial heights, the Almighty observed the turmoil of his faithful servant. God's heart stirred with compassion. Job had grieved deeply, yet there remained in him a flicker of hope, a relentless tenacity that would not relinquish faith. In his divine wisdom, God was ready to reveal deeper truths that transcended the momentary suffering. Suddenly, the silence of the heavens was broken, and a beam of light shone down upon Job. "Gird up your loins like a man, for I will demand of you, and you will answer me," a voice thundered. What Job desired, an audience with God, was answered, but in a form that was unexpected, heavy with divine authority and purpose. Job trembled at the majesty of the one who spoke, realizing that he dwelled in a world far beyond understanding. "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me, if you understand," came the voice, resonating with the echoes of creation itself. Job, awestruck, covered his mouth, his heart filled with reverent dread. He understood at last that God's plans were unfathomable and full of purpose, even within the frame of suffering. The answers he sought were not mere explanations, but manifestations of God's glory woven through the tapestry of life's trials. As the conversation unfolded, Job grasped that his pain, though profound, was part of a greater narrative, one filled with mysteries waiting to be unveiled. The divine plan loomed like a vast ocean, with Job only beginning to wade into its depths. Unbeknownst to him, the unfolding story would not only reveal God's purpose for him, but would echo through the ages, intertwining the lives of many. And so, the stage was set for a deeper revelation, illuminating the path of divine sovereignty that would resonate through generations. The promise that the trials faced today were preparing hearts for greater glories yet unseen. What fresh perspective would emerge as the complete story unfolded under the watchful eyes of the Creator? The divine secrets remained cloaked in mystery, drawing humanity ever closer to the heart of God's sovereign plan. Job, the man of patience, stood in awe of the sovereign voice that resonated through the fabric of creation. His heart trembled, yet there stirred a flicker of hope within him, as if the very essence of eternity was unveiling itself before his eyes. "Will you discredit my justice? Will you condemn me to justify yourself?" came the Lord's solemn inquiry. Each question was a hammer striking the anvil of Job's heart, forging within him a deeper understanding of righteousness and the nature of God's rule. Job felt the weight of the inquiry sink into his spirit. How can the finite comprehend the infinite? As the Lord continued, questions flowed like rushing waters. Have you ever commanded the dawn to break? Have you explored the depths of the sea or the chambers of the world below? Each word throbbed with the pulse of creation, revealing the tapestry of existence that spun delicately in God's hands. Job, engulfed in the majesty of the cosmos unfolding, found his own heart muted by the magnitude of God's eternal authority. When I laid the foundations of the earth, who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy, where were you? The celestial imagery filled Job with wonder and dread, illuminating the truth that God's designs were woven through the ages, beyond the grasp of human reasoning. In that divine confrontation, Job found humility, humbled by the chasm that lay between mankind and his Creator. I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted, Job finally declared, a revelation blossoming even amidst despair. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. With this acknowledgment an ember sparked within him, a realization that his suffering was not without purpose, but a divine involvement in the narrative of hope and restoration. And as God continued to reveal the wonders of his creation, Behemoth and Leviathan, Job understood that the unfathomable depths of divine wisdom surpassed the transient pain of his afflictions. In the backdrop of divine authority, the heavens grew quiet, the echo of God's voice infusing Job with renewed understanding. He realized that in the midst of his trials, God's sovereign plan was at work, preparing him not only for restoration, but for a grander purpose yet to be revealed. As days shifted into nights and the sunsets blazed their fiery trails across the horizon, Job's heart began to lift. What is humanity that you have made them mindful of him? He pondered, struck by the intensity of divine attention towards men. Though the weight of his suffering remained evident, a deeper strength began to fill him. The conversations were not simply about his pain. They were calling him higher, inviting him to partake in a remarkable revelation, that from ashes beauty could arise, and through trials faith could be forged. Job gripped the broken shard tighter. The edges were smooth against his palms, reflective of who he once was and the man he was yet becoming. He sought God's purpose beyond his turmoil, a connection to the divine that would enrich not just his life, but that of many others. But as the dark clouds still loomed, a question lingered above him like a promise veiled in mystery. What greater purpose was being unfolded through his trials? What revelation, unseen, was waiting in the wings of divine intent? The answers hung in the air like stars ready to be named, a light in the darkness of adversity, calling forth a greater understanding of God's sovereign plan and how far-reaching its effects would be. As silence enveloped the land, Job's heart resonated with both peace and anticipation. In his spirit, he felt the stirring of energy as the very earth and sky continued their dance under the watchful gaze of the Almighty. With weariness clinging to him like a heavy cloak, Job gazed skyward, seeking the face of his Creator amidst the vast expanse of the heavens. The Lord, in his omnipotence, continued to speak, unveiling further mysteries of his creation to the heart of Job. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or have you seen the storehouses of the hail, which I reserve for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war? Each inquiry spiraled into Job's being, deepening his reverent understanding of the purpose behind pain and the arrival of trials. Where is the way to the dwelling of light, and where is the place of darkness? The questions sparked in Job a yearning to comprehend the unfathomable depths of God's orchestration. His thoughts danced around the power of creation, contemplating the intricate balance of light and dark, the beauty and turmoil that surrounded him. It echoed the very state of his own existence. As Job reflected, a revelation seemed to dance like fireflies in the night. "I am but clay in the hands of the potter," he murmured, his voice a whisper against the raging storm inside. Job felt a renewed resolve, as though the echoes of God's words were resounding against the walls of his heart, shaping him anew. For I know that you, O Lord, are not distant. You are nearer than I realize, even in my deepest anguish. With this acknowledgement of God's presence, Job envisioned the trials ahead not merely as burdens, but as invitations into deeper communion with his Creator. Was it possible that through suffering, God was forging a new beginning, preparing him for a purpose that transcended understanding? Then, as swiftly as the sun crowns the horizon, it dawned upon him. Perhaps the answer to his turmoil was not just for his own restoration, but a divinely orchestrated narrative poised to impact many others. Could it be, Job pondered within, that my wounds may serve to heal others? That the story of my endurance could inspire faith in those who walk through despair? His heart raced. Hope was igniting. It glimmered, bright as the morning star, challenging the shadows of doubt that once loomed. The winds shifted, swirling around him, whispering truths that radiated with a heavenly light. The truth arrived suddenly. God's purpose was erupting into fruition, quietly magnifying the very essence of his glory through the tales of those who endure. In that holy moment, as the world around him seemed both still and full of promise, Job surrendered all he held tightly, his pain, his confusion, and even his cries for justice. With a heart now attuned to the symphony of suffering and redemption, Job exclaimed, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." The resolve echoed back in the heavens and surrounding earth. But as he sunk deeper into contemplation of God's boundless love, another question arose. What would the unfolding future hold, and who would be the recipients of this newfound understanding? The mystery remained, a question that danced like a flicker of flame just beyond his reach, hinting at divine revelation yet to grace his sight. Behold, the greater purpose of your trials is not only for you, but for a world longing to see my faithfulness. The echo of God's voice lingered in the air, compelling Job to press forward into the unknown. The journey had just begun, and with it, the shadow of expectancy loomed larger than ever, a beckoning light awaiting to illuminate the path of restoration and hope. As the sun dipped low, painting the skies in shades of crimson and gold, a sense of urgency enveloped Job. He felt the pulse of creation, the heartbeat of a world shaped by divine intent. The gentle yet powerful wind that swept across the land seemed to echo the profound truths that God had spoken to him. There was not only a future unfolding, but also a divine purpose being revealed, one breathtaking moment at a time. With his heart renewed, Job sought to understand the manifestation of his trials. As he looked upon the barren landscape before him, the desolation was heavy. Yet deep within, a spark flickered, a divine ember ignited by truth. "Lord," he cried aloud, "show me the meaning of this suffering. I long to grasp the purpose that lies within the depths of my anguish." His voice, though shaky, reverberated with the strength born of desperation intertwined with hope. Then, as though to answer him, the heavens darkened momentarily, and the familiar voice of God resonated once more, filling the air with a presence that brought both awe and fear. "Job, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades, or loose the cords of Orion? Can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons, or guide the bear with its cubs?" Each question tumbled forth with the weight of celestial authority. Job fell to his knees, overwhelmed by these truths. The vastness of God's creation was a reminder that his own suffering, while painful, was part of a broader tapestry woven by the Master's hand. "Indeed, I cannot comprehend the heavens, nor fully understand your ways," he murmured, realizing that even in his trials he was held within the divine narrative. "Yet, in my affliction, perhaps I have been given a glimpse of your profound wisdom, an invitation into your depths," Job continued, the resolve in his spirit burning brighter. "Help me to embody the faith that transcends understanding, the grace that bears witness to your unending love." The Lord, in his unchanging nature, spoke directly to Job's heart. You shall not only endure, but you shall rise from the ashes, renewed and resilient. By your perseverance many shall see my goodness. They will recognize your tribulations and find strength in their own. For the paths through bitter trials are often the very avenues through which my light shines brightest. As the landscape began to shift before him, Job contemplated how his personal journey would reflect upon the lives of others. Is it possible, Lord, that my story, marked by grief and anguish, may resound with the notes of hope for those who follow? A longing stirred within, stretching toward a future that was both personal and collective. In the quiet of the evening, beneath the expansive vault of the heavens, Job pressed deeper into a prayer, a cry intertwined with purpose, for he felt the weight of many yet to come. May my life, Lord, be a beacon of hope. May my suffering teach of your greatness in the midst of silence, and may my endurance echo your name. Just as his heart began to find rest in this newfound understanding, the winds began to swirl once more, propelling forth a revelation that left Job breathless. The time draws near, the voice of God assured him, for your journey is not merely your own, but intertwined with the destiny of countless souls seeking solace in the storm. In this moment, Job sensed a divine orchestration far beyond what his earthly eyes could perceive, and he understood. God's faithful provision was not just for him, but pivotal for a multitude longing to witness his glory, the very glory he was now preparing to unveil. What you perceive as loss shall birth tremendous gain, resonated the Lord's voice, reverberating through the corridors of heaven and earth alike. In the unfolding of his sovereign plan, Job encountered the profound depth of trust, captured in the promise that the divine narrative was far richer than he could have previously imagined. And thus, as the night claimed the day, the eternal mysteries of God began to illuminate the darkened corners of Job's heart. Would the dawning light reveal his ultimate purpose? Would restoration bloom from the ashes of despair? The answers lingered tantalizingly close, just out of reach, prompting an insatiable yearning deep within the soul of the faithful servant. As the stars began to pierce the evening sky, their flickering light echoed the hope burgeoning within Job's spirit. His heart, once heavy with sorrow, now thrummed with anticipation. He had witnessed the overwhelming majesty of God's creation and felt the weight of his own humility pressing down upon him. He stood in that reverent stillness, pondering deeply the voice that had reverberated through the heavens. "Behold, I am but dust and ashes," he murmured in a voice softened by realization. "Yet you choose to speak to me, revealing your unfathomable nature. Who am I that you are mindful of me?" And in the stillness of that moment, Job found strength not in his condition but in the graciousness of God's intimate engagement. His mind wandered back to the moments of affliction, the endless nights where despair had sought to silence him. Yet each trial had sharpened his faith like a blade forged in fire, and through every tear the divine hand had been working, crafting a narrative far greater than his own suffering. "Lord," he prayed again, kneeling amidst the creeping shadows, "if I am to rise renewed, forge me anew. Let your will be done in my life." Then the voice of the Lord broke through once more, a sound as powerful as a spring storm, yet comforting as the whisper of a loving parent. "Job, you shall witness not only your restoration, but also the ripple effect of my purpose through your faithfulness. For in your endurance many shall discover their own way back to me, and the cycle of despair shall transform into one of hope." With each word spoken, Job felt the weight of the world upon his shoulders lift, replaced by a mantle of purpose. "But how can it be, O Lord? Will my pain echo in the hearts of those who have yet to see your light?" The question hung heavy in the air, filling the silence with a gravity born from sincere yearning. The Lord replied gently, "Consider the ways in which I have revealed myself throughout history, through the wilderness, through the trials of my chosen people, and in the shadow of despair. It is in the lowly places that my light shines brightest. Your suffering is not wasted. It shall bear witness to my steadfastness. Job rose to his feet, emboldened by this revelation. The stars bore witness to the unfolding narrative of his life, a tale of unyielding faith amid chaos that would speak to the generations to come. "Then let it be so, Lord," he declared. "I will not lose heart. I will be a vessel of your glory, even in trial." As dawn approached, the sky glimmered with hues of hope, as if creation itself awaited the fulfillment of divine promise. Job felt a burning resolve swell within him. Let my story be woven into the fabric of faith that stands against the tide of doubt, that others may see and know that you are good. In that moment, as the first rays of light crested over the horizon, the voice of God resonated once more, penetrating deep into Job's very being. "Not only shall I restore you, Job, but I shall make your name known. The world shall see the faith that birthed life from ashes. Your trial shall echo through time, leading many to the path of righteousness." Job gazed toward the dawn, the brightness spilling across the land, igniting a new understanding within him. The trials he endured were not merely events to endure, but sacred encounters with the divine. With renewed purpose, Job grasped the truth that God was orchestrating an immeasurable plan that transcended his understanding. "Lord, your will be done," he responded, his voice filled with conviction. "For I shall wait upon you and proclaim your faithfulness, come what may." And with that commitment, the winds shifted once more, stirring the air with the promise of change. Job's heart pounded with the realization that the fullness of God's sovereign plan was yet to unfold, a tapestry of grace woven through the fabric of humanity's shared suffering. Little did he know, the purpose that awaited was more astounding than he could ever imagine. "Indeed," came the whisper of God's Spirit, "the dawn of a new beginning is at hand, for soon you will witness the depths of my mercy in ways you have not yet understood." Thus, the stage was set for the unfolding grandeur of divine transformation, beckoning to Job, a story echoing through the ages, waiting to illuminate the hearts of all who dared to trust in the God who restores even the most broken of spirits. Then, as the sun painted the world in strokes of gold, Job gathered himself, resolved to embrace this new dawn. He took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs, a reminder of life and possibility. And he set forth towards his abode, ready to face whatever awaited him. As he walked the familiar path among the fields that had once flourished under his care, he could sense a stirring within the earth. The ground beneath his feet felt alive, thrumming with the pulse of creation, resonating with God's promises whispered upon the winds. With each step, he felt the remnants of his suffering trailing behind him, not as shadows of defeat, but as testimonies of hope that would mark his journey ahead. "Surely, Lord," Job spoke aloud, "you have purpose woven into the very fabric of my being. Let every moment of affliction find its voice in the songs of deliverance." His faith called forth a deep longing not just for personal restoration, but for a transformation that would echo beyond himself to those lost in darkness. As the day unfolded, news spread through the village like wildfire. The voice of Job, once a beacon of wisdom, had returned stronger than ever. His friends, Elihu, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, felt compelled to visit, filled with both curiosity and trepidation. They had witnessed his trials and torment, but now the winds of change seemed to blow from Job's direction. "I shall go and see my brother in faith," Elihu declared, as determination carved lines upon his brow. What the Lord has wrought in Job's heart must not be concealed. We must learn from him, and we must rejoice. When they arrived, they beheld Job standing amidst the fields, his eyes illuminated by the light of the heavens. He looked different, transformed, infused with renewed vigor and purpose. It was as if the very Spirit of God danced in his presence. "Job," they called in unison, their voices mingling with the rustling leaves, "is this truly you? We had thought you lost to anguish, yet here you rise as a phoenix from the ashes." With a heartfelt embrace, Job welcomed his friends, and as they sat together, he began to recount the wondrous work of God in his life. "Brothers, I have walked through the valley of despair, but I have found life beyond the boundaries of my suffering. The Lord has not only restored my spirit, he has woven a tapestry of hope that will stretch throughout the ages." As Job shared, the sky seemed to shift in hue, brightening as if nature itself conspired to affirm his declaration. The onlookers gathered, drawn by the sound of Job's voice, now a harbinger of hope, resonating through the community. "Listen," Job continued, "for I have discovered that in our darkest moments, God's grace shines brightest. His purposes are deeper than our comprehension, and in our pain, we are brought closer to the heart of the Father. His words, imbued with divine authority, reached the ears of those weary from their own burdens. They listened as he painted a picture of God's loving sovereignty, how trials are not mere tests, but sacred conversations with the Almighty, leading to growth and understanding." Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted and a hush fell over the crowd. Through the stillness, a soft murmur began, for many felt the presence of God around them, wrapping them in warmth and assurance. "Do you not see," Job spoke, emboldened, "what the Lord has whispered to me? Just as he has been faithful to me, he is present with each of you in your trials. Allow him to transform your pain into purpose." Then the voice of the Lord resonated once more in Job's heart. "Job, your suffering has illuminated the path for many. But behold, the fullness of my plan has yet to be revealed. Your faith shall catalyze a movement of hope that shall ripple through generations. And as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows, the hearts of those gathered stirred with newfound hope, ignited by the story of Job." The journey of restoration had only just begun, and Job's transformation would become a pivotal chapter in the unfolding saga of faith, a testament to the grace that could awaken dormant souls across the lands. Thus, it was not just his name that would be known, but the very hope he embraced would be an eternal beacon, calling forth all who thirst for truth. And in that stirring moment hung the divine mystery. What greater wonders awaited through Job's obedience, and how far-reaching would be the impact of a heart wholly aligned with God. As twilight draped its cloak over the land, Job stood among his friends, an air of expectancy enveloping them. The essence of hope lingered in the space, as palpable as the fresh scent of rain-soaked earth. Together they felt the pull of something greater, a divine weight beckoning them to look beyond the veil of their human struggles. "Job," Zophar ventured cautiously, his voice rising above the gentle whispers of the evening, "your words have stirred our hearts. Yet we seek understanding. What did the Lord reveal to you in your anguish?" Job regarded his friends, their faces etched with both concern and curiosity. "Ah, my brethren, the depths of my suffering were a crucible, refining my spirit. I have learned that our trials are not meant to break us, but to build us anew, as the potter shapes the clay. For the Lord desires us not just to endure, but to emerge brighter than gold, tested and true." Bildad leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "We have watched you bend under the weight of affliction, yet now you speak of beauty in the ashes. How do we grasp this divine alchemy?" With the flickering light of the fire illuminating his face, Job conveyed the essence of his discovery. "The Lord answered me, not in the midst of my questions, but in the silence between them. His presence became my anchor. When I was engulfed by despair, it was his love that cradled me. I saw the mysteries of creation, and in them I beheld his hand. Can any man comprehend the depths of the ocean or the vastness of the stars? In his infinite wisdom, he governs all things, his love, our guide." Elihu, moved by Job's declaration, clasped his hands together. "So, your pain became a portal through which you glimpsed the divine. What shall we do now, Job? How do we help those still in the depths?" Job's eyes glimmered with fervor, energized by their collective yearning. "We shall share this truth. Let our words be vessels of his hope. let us comfort those who mourn, for he promises beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning. Isaiah 61:3. We shall become messengers of his grace, speaking life into desolation. The crowd around them swelled with purpose, hearts ignited by Job's conviction. Just as darkness yields to dawn, they felt a new light blazing within them. Hope, once diminished, was fanned into flame. In that moment, the atmosphere thickened, and the night sky above bore witness. Stars twinkled like scattered diamonds, shimmering with the secrets of ages past. Job raised his hands to the heavens, his heart intertwined with a vision that transcended the present trials. Hear me, O heavens, for our God is not a distant observer. He is intricately involved in the fabric of our lives. Each tear, each cry of our hearts is gathered, cherished by him. And just as the fervor of his proclamation rippled through those gathered, a notable hush punctuated the air, as if the very creation paused to absorb the profound truth being shared. It was then that the Lord spoke once more in quiet authority. Job, your story is but the beginning. Trust fully in my plan. I shall lay a foundation through your trials that will shape nations and call many to my side. As this divine statement resounded in Job's spirit, he sensed that more awaited him than he could fathom, a journey extending far beyond his own restoration. Thus the night deepened, laden with anticipation, for he who had traversed immense suffering was now a vessel of promise, destined to impact countless souls. Yet even as hope surged, a new mystery lingered in the shadows. What unimaginable wonders would unfold as Job's faith intertwined with God's unyielding purpose? The dawn of understanding was near, heralding a divine plan that would echo through eternity. As the night deepened, Job felt the weight of the promise resting on his heart like a mantle of glory. The flickering flames mirrored the fervent hope igniting their souls, and he turned to his friends, who now stood as witnesses to a story that transcended their understanding of prosperity and suffering. "Friends," Job began, his voice steady, "if our sufferings lead to such revelations, then may we encourage one another to walk boldly into the shadows. For in the depths of despair, there lies the possibility of encountering the Almighty. Let not our hearts falter in confusion or bitterness, but be poured out in prayer and supplication." Elihu's eyes sparkled with the light of divine inspiration. "Indeed, Job, let us implore the Lord for wisdom. Too often we are blinded by the storm's fury, forgetting that in stormy seas he is the anchor of our souls." Their voices intertwined like a sweet melody, rising to the heavens as they poured out their hearts in prayer, seeking the Lord's guidance and strength. The world around them faded away, consumed by the intimacy of their fellowship and the tangible presence of God. As the moon climbed higher, a brilliant light illuminated the path before them, illuminating the depths of thought and longing. With renewed fervor, Job relayed the visions he had seen. A vast tapestry woven by the hands of the Creator, intricate and profound. "I beheld a great cloud of witnesses, and among them were the choices of countless generations. Their faith, despite trials, brought forth a myriad of blessings that have echoed through the ages." Zophar, regaining his composure, expressed a thought that echoed within their spirits. "Do we not see? This very night, our gathering is part of that tapestry. Our faith, forged through trials, is intertwined with those who have come before us and those who shall follow. We are partakers in his divine story." Job nodded, the gravity of their collective experience settling over them like a mantle. "Yes, beloved friends, we are threads in the grand design. Each moment, each suffering, brings us closer to the divine purpose. As it is written, 'For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future.' Jeremiah 29:11. Their faith began to burgeon, breaking the chains of despair. The weary hearts of Job's friends began to beat with the rhythm of hope, emboldening them to rise, to proclaim, to share their experiences as living testimonies of God's grace. But as dawn's rays approached, a still, small voice seemed to whisper from the heavens, stirring Job once more. "Yet my heart wrestles with understanding. What of my suffering? What of those who watch in anguish and feel forgotten? How do I convey this assurance to the world?" In the stillness, a profound revelation dawned upon him, illuminating his purpose even further. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me," he declared, drawing strength from Psalm 23. Perhaps it is through our vulnerabilities that others may see the power of His light shining through us. As they stood together, emboldened by the promise of divine presence, a fresh resolve filled their hearts. They pledged to go forth, to carry the truth of God's faithfulness, becoming heralds of His mercy and love. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, a gentle reminder of the cosmos at work. Job's heart raced. He sensed that a monumental shift was on the horizon. Could it be, he pondered, the air thick with expectancy? Is this but a precursor to that which the Lord has in store? I feel it. There is more yet to unfold. For even in their revelations, an undeniable truth loomed larger than their understanding. The chapters of God's unfolding story were far from complete. What transformations awaited them in this divine design that would not only change their lives, but press upon the very fabric of human existence? The anticipation swelled in their hearts, echoing a question yet unanswered. How would God's sovereign plan reveal itself through their trials, and to what ends? As the first light of dawn broke over the land of Uz, the sky blazed with hues of gold, heralding not just a new day but the fulfilling of a divine promise. Job stood among his friends, newly invigorated with unshakable faith. The air hummed with the sublime presence of the Almighty, and Job felt a surge of determination ripple through him. "Friends," Job began, his voice steady and filled with the assurance of experienced grace, "we have wandered through the valley of despair, yet today we stand on the threshold of restoration. The Lord, who has walked with us in our trials, is now beckoning us to the joy of His deliverance." Zophar and the others, emboldened by the transformation they had witnessed within Job, nodded in agreement. They felt a spiritual awakening stirring in their spirits. Job continued, reveling in the warmth of camaraderie. "In our suffering, He has shaped us. He has crafted our hearts to be vessels of His hope and love. Look, even the barren fields now await the touch of His hand, anticipating a harvest of grace." In that moment, the winds stirred. A gentle breeze wafted across the fields, carrying with it the sweet scent of promise that filled their souls. Job further proclaimed, "As it is written, the Lord will indeed give what is good, and our land will yield its harvest." Psalm 85:12. Indeed, we are not merely recipients of His grace, but agents of His goodwill, called now to share the abundance of our hearts. As his words hung in the air, profound silence blanketed the gathering, a sacred moment steeped in the reverence of divine realization. From the hills surrounding them, echoes of other voices joined their own, murmuring prayers of thanks to the God who had drawn near in their suffering. It was as if the entire creation held its breath, waiting to witness the revealing of His glory. Then, as if orchestrated by divine intent, the earth trembled softly beneath Job's feet, a gentle reminder of the God who walks among His people and nurtures their spirits. The hearts of the gathered swelled as sorrow gave way to joy, blossoms of hope unfurling amidst the ashes. "Behold!" Job cried out, extending his hands as if to gather the very essence of faith and fortitude. "Let us rise and speak to our loved ones. Let our testimonies reveal the enduring faithfulness of God. Let us share how His mercy transforms the harshest of trials into pathways for divine encounter." Eliphaz, once the critic, now a believer transformed, stepped forward with newfound zeal. "Indeed, let us not keep this treasure to ourselves. The world weeps in silence. Let our stories be an anthem of His love, shining like the morning sun across the darkened hearts of men. And they spoke, one after another, each recounting the intimate moments of God's presence and revelation during their trials, igniting the faith of those who had despaired. Their words danced like fireflies, illuminating the shadows of doubt that had overtaken many. As the sun ascended, casting its warm rays over the land, the villagers, drawn by the radiance of hope shining forth, approached Job and his friends. They gathered around, eager to partake in the message of restoration shared with such fervor. "Tell us," they urged, "how can we know this God you speak of? How can our pain serve a greater purpose?" With conviction, Job began to weave together the tapestry of suffering and grace. "The Lord is near to the broken-hearted and saves the crushed in spirit." Psalm 34:18. Friends, in our suffering, we have tasted the depths of His love, and it is here, amidst the ashes, that He creates beauty. You must know Him, not as the distant deity, but as the close companion who walks beside you. The crowd was mesmerized. Eyes wide with recognition, hearts stirred by the truths unfolding before them. Job's story was no longer his alone. It became a collective voice echoing through the valleys, resonating in the hearts of all who yearned for hope. And just as the harvest began to take root, God's hand moved to fulfill His promise. Restoration was at hand. The land, long parched, began to flourish once more as rain fell and life burst forth from the ground. Job saw it, the bounty of God's love rippling across the fields, symbolizing His steadfastness and the fresh start destined for all who would seek Him. "Look, my brothers and sisters," Job exclaimed, filled with a holy exuberance. "This is our call to embrace His victory. For what was meant for harm will serve a greater purpose. May the trials we endured forge us into vessels of testimony." As the sun illuminated the heart of the assembly, lifting spirits to the heights of divine possibilities, the people erupted into praise. Shouts of joy and gratitude soared into the heavens, mingling with the contented sighs of creation. "Let us go forth into all the land," Job proclaimed. "Let us share the good news, declare the wonders of our God, and show the world the redeeming power of faith." Thus, as Job's story intertwined with the lives of many, his faith became an everlasting light, a legacy etched in the annals of time, an invitation for all to seek, to hope, and to believe in the glorious promise of restoration that the Lord so generously extends. So let it be known that the trials we face shall never stand against the waves of His purpose. In God's relentless love, we find the strength to rise, to endure, and to rejoice, knowing that through our suffering, He is crafting a narrative that transcends earthly understanding, illuminating the path for generations to come. And now, as we conclude this awe-inspiring journey, will you too embrace the call? Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you're ready for the next powerful biblical stories that will inspire your faith. Leave a like now to help spread God's Word through the algorithm, lighting up the darkness with His truth. Comment your spiritual reflections below. Tell us how this story of Job impacted your faith journey and how God has worked in your life. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth today. Don't wait even one more second. Join in this mission to reach more souls for Christ, because only true believers understand the importance of sharing the light of biblical content with a world yearning for hope.